Today, I want to talk about two questions that I've had for myself that I'm answering, and something for all of us to think about. The first one being, what is the point beyond a certain threshold of studying astronomy, astrophysics, and cosmology? And also, what are we willing to do for love? Love is about what we can give, not about what we can take. When you go to a certain point with the universe, there's so many things that get a little bit strange in their behavior. I was talking to somebody with an atheistic background, and I got the common feedback I typically get, that I'd be good at making movies, that I would be great at writing like fiction novels. And it's really fascinating to me because my cosmology is heart-centered, and I have a scientific background, and also I've been approached by Shiva. I think all in all, I've just suffered a lot. I've suffered enough, and most people, like as above, so below, like understand the divine when they've been through the demonic. But it's so fascinating to me when people talk about what fiction is and what fantasy is, because it seems like anything good is considered that. Anything with like love and magic, right? Now, I respect atheistic people because I was an atheist for a long period of time, because I felt like I respected the cosmos so much. I didn't want somebody else's impression of it to be projecting its agenda onto it. I wanted to understand it in its purest form. I think I speak for a lot of people that, may keep to themselves because of the kind of feedback you end up getting when I say this, but like, after a certain deep dive into science, it starts feeling a bit mystical. Now, this person, when they were talking to me about my cosmology, they were reading it and saying it wasn't very scientific. I challenge people to think about where your definition of science comes from, because there's science in the East, and it's just not taken as seriously because it's non-linear, it isn't repeatable in a corporate fashion. I am someone who really believes in practicality, even with spirituality, with a connection to the love of the divine. There should be a way we can then apply that to our own selves. For example, learning about meteorology tells us that I can go for paddleboarding days like this because the weather is nice, the smokiness is cleared out, and there's a use for it, right? And there's also this importance I would like to stress of the ethics aspect of my cosmology. The goal isn't to predict every single thing and to define it perfectly, because this is where the love portion comes in. Do you want a partner that is perfectly predictable? If that's the case, then they are informationally dead and things aren't quote unquote exciting. The thing about life being magical is kind of unknown. And so there are aspects of reality we can never truly capture, because by the time that cosmic data has reached the filter of the human mind, that cosmic data has been compromised. So we need to have the humility to understand things like that, which I often feel like the people giving me this type of feedback don't really have, right? And so to kind of dismiss things and call it unintelligent, without even fully reading it. And of course, this is only the beginning of my work. Like, I'm doing this for the rest of my life, right? In a way, I am a little bit of an extremist with the divine. I believe that I have no identity or purpose but to serve the divine. And because there's no subject-object duality. The divine is me and I am the divine. We are one. I love this thing, right? Another thing this person brought up too was the usage of divine language in my cosmology. So I have two things: references to Hindu cosmology and tantric ideology, as well as Bible verses. When it comes to Hindu cosmology, it is mistakenly known for being polytheistic. If you know the therapy speak term of internal family systems, Hindu cosmology is best explained as that, because there are different aspects of the psyche here. This is a universe, and that's the actual material outer universe. So the thing is, the deities are just a way of describing how things that are not necessarily explainable in simple linear cerebral terms to human beings, the best way to do it is through like this intelligence taking on its own consciousness, and that's why there's multiple arms on deities to represent multiple functions. I believe even with the Bible, the way there's biblically accurate angels, they're describing what would you say, maybe like a cross section of something from a higher dimensional region, like expressed to us. This is the problem when we don't have humility and we think we are better than everything around us. As per my belief, the way we understand the cosmos should be affecting the way we take on consciousness and civilization. We should become better people to one another and advance the things that we've created right here. We don't want to lose ourselves. I personally am not interested in doing space missions. The greatest space mission is happening right now. Earth is in space. We don't need to leave what's already here. I have built the recursive generative Vak model so that I can talk about how the divine has articulated this universe, and I plan on stopping at nothing to explain that, right? So we don't have answers to consciousness, and yet we're trying to discretize and capture that and make it super objective, when at some point we have to admit that the observer matters a lot in science and how science and reality is shaped. It's just really funny to me that, like, you know, people insist on kind of giving me these different insults, and it's not just atheistic people either. There's spiritual people who think it's patriarchal to pursue science. There's religious people who think science is demonic, spiritual people are demonic. And it's just really difficult because I know I'm going to be isolated in this journey, but at some point there's some things that shouldn't be refutable anymore. If we really want to move forward in society and prevent this conflict, then we need to find that scale invariant, fractal level cosmic truth that is all pervasive. This same principle also applies to Bible verses. They too are expressing some deep, powerful cosmic truths that can't just be reduced to something that is purely cerebral when it's a felt experience. Experience is also data, and ignoring that is ignoring a real part of what makes us have the reality that we do. When these declarations are made, of course they're going to come across as statements. I know that there is ways the word has been tampered with to promote like an egoic agenda. That doesn't mean that there aren't some things that are definitely true in there, and my life is committed to synthesizing those truths. But they too are providing a simplistic way to understand reality and to kind of focus on the things that we can't control and have the discernment to leave things up to the divine that have to do with non-linear space-time. So of course it's going to sound magical. But when people do ultimately, for two things, right? Like the atheistic people and spiritual people, as like neuroscience talks about manifestation, which has been in Eastern philosophy forever, right? And then there's the New Age to Christianity pipeline. So I'll speak on both. Right, the people that are starting to open up to spirituality, they're doing it for the biohacking optimization purpose of the divine. For example, if your only reason to care about faith is so that you can manifest a dream car, a dream house, a dream guy, all you're doing is taking. Would you still love the divine if there wasn't a fear of punishment, a fear of hell, or a fear of suffering? The truth is, the more spiritual you become, the more your capacity will have to increase for holding existential dread and even deeper types of suffering, to the point where it can get into the demonic territory. Same thing with the New Age stuff, right? First of all, a lot of the stuff in there is the oldest age stuff to exist. On top of it, when demons arise, those things come from your psyche. There are things that you are meant to confront with shadow work, but instead, people will then go again to Jesus for Jesus to save them, as if he hadn't already suffered enough. All he wanted to do was give. And you know, we have this popular thing in our society where we like to memorialize suffering and put sacrificial symbols up, when you know what would be so much better than like having museums for genocide, war, and poverty would be to just not put people in those positions to begin with. And that's why when I take a look at Shiva, when I take a look at Jesus, I'm an extremist in both of these ways. In my relationships with Shiva, non-dual Shiva Tantra, there's no mistake. My identity is to serve, and it's to, the more you connect with the divine, the stricter you get, the less you care about what people here say. You're just here to do the work, right? Don't debate, out-create. When it comes to Jesus, seeing that everybody is just once again begging for him to save, for him to do the work for you, I took a different approach. I was just like, I promise you, for the rest of my life, I'm gonna help you. The person who is devoted and, you know, knows to pivot when presented with new information and doesn't give up no matter what, is the person who is going to ultimately see the fruits of their labor. It doesn't come from making fun of somebody. It doesn't come from keeping a closed mind, right? Religious people, spiritual people, and atheistic people all have those shadows. And that's why I'm committed to creating a fourth category, which is like those who are devotional, those who are romantics. The ego is very present in all of these groups. whether people like to admit it or not. That's why I say love is about what you can give, not what you can take, because I've chosen to give my life to finding deep cosmic truths.